I'm with Naomi Tsur, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. Now, Naomi, how easy is it to run the city like Jerusalem?
Well, Jerusalem is the most fascinating city in the world. In more ancient times, it was viewed as the center of the universe, and looking at the way it's treated by world media, you would think that it still is. It's something like being in the eye of a geopolitical storm that's been going on for about 3,000 years and isn't going to end anytime soon. But when you're in that eye, when you're in the city of Jerusalem, which the Jewish sages described as having been given 9 of the 10 measures of beauty given to the entire world, and we sometimes think that we were given 9 of 10 measures of everything, which includes all the conflicts and all the difficulties. But when you're in the city itself, you're in a city which is simply a city. It's true. It's the spiritual destination, the most important spiritual destination for Jews and for Christians, a very important spiritual destination for Muslims as well around the world. So billions of people raise their eyes to Jerusalem. But if you're just living in the city, it's a city that has to be run for all its residents. And that means people want to get up in the morning, send their kids to school, go shopping, go to work, go to hospital, go to the zoo, do all the things that you do in a city. And we sometimes feel that geopolitical Jerusalem, which is a kind of entity in its own right, but has very little bearing on the city that we are running, is like some global jigsaw puzzle that in different places in the world people pick up pieces from here or from there and rearrange them in some way or another. And we who live in the city realize just how tricky that might be, because it's our job to care for all the populations of the city. And the remarkable thing is how well the city works, because it has different neighborhoods. Some of them are Jewish pluralistic neighborhoods. Some of them are Arab Christian or Arab Muslim. And some of them are ultra-Orthodox Jewish. Of those 30 neighborhoods scattered around the city, not on a convenient east-west divide, it's something we have to remember, and not with a conveniently arranged metropolis either. When they all emerge from their neighborhoods, they emerge into a public domain which is truly shared by all the residents. We have a light rail that serves all the populations of the city. I travel on it every day, and I see my fellow ultra-Orthodox residents, Christians, Muslims, Jews, all different sizes, shapes, colors, ways of dress of people, a city with freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and freedom of worship for all the faiths in the city. So I think that although world media as a whole tries to find everything that might be interpreted as going wrong in Jerusalem, in fact most cities have things that go wrong in them, there is a remarkable amount that goes right. And if you ask people all around the city how they view themselves, they don't see themselves so much, and I think this applies both to the Israelis and the Palestinians. They feel themselves to be much more Jerusalemite than either Israeli or Palestinian. Jerusalem has an identity of its own. And this is interesting in a world where by the end of this century we're going to have 90% of the whole world living in cities. So cities are going to be the center of things and not the countries. Countries are going to become less and less relevant, and this may have a positive bearing on the geopolitical conflicts of the world.
Now, everyone loves coming to Jerusalem. What is special about the city?
The special quality of Jerusalem is the fact that the city is one of the most beautiful places in the world because of its incredibly sculptured landscape. It's a landscape that hasn't changed for millennia. And its heritage sites and its spiritual aura are incredible. In fact, they're too powerful for some people who come to the city, get overwhelmed by the sense that wherever you walk, you're treading on layers and layers of history, heritage, destruction, rebuilding, persecution, inspiration, all the possible things that you could find in one city in a relatively small area. What many people don't realize that Jerusalem is a city with a lot of natural resources. There is nature in Jerusalem. You will find a park with gazelles in it in the heart of the city. We're on the major bird migration route. these migrations of birds and herds of gazelles, it's the same flora and fauna that we had in Bible times. And these are things that we treasure and we're integrating into the planning of the city. A very special quality is the way the old city meets the new city, and the light rail itself does that physically. The line of the light rail that comes up past Damascus Gate and Jaffa Gate, and then in your passage of the light rail to Mount Herzl, it's a passage of distance and it's a passage, an axis of time, because it's the expansion of the old city into the new city, and you come to the modern Calatrava Bridge at the entrance to the city. It's a completely new world of architecture and landscaping.
Now, how many tourists do you get coming to Jerusalem every year, and what can they see here?
I think that all tourists who come to Jerusalem are one kind of pilgrim or another. Even if they don't see themselves as pilgrims, they are, in fact. There will be something spiritual about their visit to the city. At the beginning of our administration, which was 4.5 years ago, we had only just over 2 million tourists a year, and now we're tipping over the 4 million. So we've doubled our tourism. We've set a goal of 10 million tourists for Jerusalem annually. We think we can reach it comfortably within another 5 or 10 years. We must remember that cities like London or New York or Paris have about 50 million tourists a year. So we're not on that scale, and also I think the modesty and humility of Jerusalem would be badly impacted by so many. But we have to think of ways of spreading our pilgrims and tourists around and giving them interesting things to do, not only at the ultimate pilgrim sites that they all want to get to enjoy the natural resources of the city, the areas around the city, the parks, the gardens, and many interesting historic sites.
Now, you've just had the Jerusalem Marathon. Do you have lots of events planned for 2013?
We have wonderful events planned for 2013. The marathon was a wonderful success. We had very good weather conditions for ours. There was tragedy in the Tel Aviv marathon, unfortunately, but apparently this happens in marathons all over the world. We're planning an incredible series of events. We will have our season of culture in the summer with a lot of outdoor cultural events for families, for tourists, for everyone to enjoy. They bring a lot of Israelis from other parts of Israel as well. And the event that I'm personally hosting and very busy with at the moment is what we're opening on the 21st of April, where we will have the gala opening of the first International Jerusalem Symposium on Green and Accessible Pilgrimage, because Jerusalem has joined forces with other pilgrim cities in the world in a green pilgrimage network to make the pilgrim experience a sustainable one, and to encourage the cities that are destinations for pilgrims to work together to receive their pilgrims in a friendly way. And of course, Jerusalem, that receives both Jews, Christians, and Muslims, is a special case, a special challenge, and a special opportunity.
Does tourism need to become more environmentally friendly?
Well, that's one of the reasons that we're going this route of green pilgrimage, because there's no doubt about it. For world travel not to have an entirely negative impact on some of the most precious resources throughout the world, and Jerusalem is one of them, pilgrims have to tread lightly, as do all tourists, and we have taken the slogan that we ask our visitors to leave a positive footprint. And leaving a positive footprint is not an easy thing to do. You have to think how you plan your travel, how you conduct your journey with humility, and leaving a positive footprint even implies that you will leave the place that you are visiting more beautiful than it was. You're not only not going to do any damage, you're going to improve it. It's going to be a better place than it was before.
Now, there are a lot of Christians here in Jerusalem. How important is the Christian community here?
In my opinion, there aren't enough Christians in Jerusalem. I believe that in the last few decades it's happened gradually. The Christian community is largely among the Arab population, which is, of course, a majority of Muslims. And I don't think the Christian community is comfortable in Muslim societies. I think the population of Christians in Jerusalem has dwindled. It's only a few meager thousand compared to about 300,000 Muslims in the city. So it's a very small representation. We have representation of all the Christian communities. We have a couple of dozen different kinds of churches and centers representing the different Christian communities of the world, but they're not supported by a sufficiently large local population. I would like to see many more Christians living in the city of Jerusalem, serving and working with the faith communities.
Now you have both Arabs and Jews living here in Jerusalem. Do you have projects of reconciliation, bringing the two sides together?
Well, projects of reconciliation, I think you have to take in the context of the city. In the context of the city, Jews and Muslims are working side by side in the Israeli hospitals. They're studying side by side in university. We have a deaf school for Jewish and Muslim children who use the same sign language. We have a bilingual school attended by Israeli and Palestinian kids. So things aren't as bad as they seem from the outside, not to mention the entire use of the public domain. If you go downtown, if you go to a shopping mall, if you go to a clinic or a hospital or a zoo, you'll find all the different populations of Jerusalem doing things together. So we're trying to do special projects. I would say, for instance, that the symposium we're holding on green and accessible pilgrimage will bring together the different faith communities of the city to pledge to work together, because they may not agree on theology, but they can all agree that they want their city to be greener and cleaner, and they all want more pilgrims and visitors that bring livelihood to the communities. Most of the Christian communities of Jerusalem run guest houses and hostels of different kinds. We want those to be full to overflowing. We want them to need more hotel rooms. We're hoping to add thousands of additional hotel rooms and accommodation space in the city of Jerusalem for all those guests and pilgrims that we want to welcome in the years to come.
And how significant was 1967 to the Jewish people having Jerusalem back again after many years?
I think that in 1967, the city was unified. I know that at that time, it was my first year in Israel. It was a very exciting time. And I think the world at that time very much identified with the concept of a unified Jerusalem. I believe that the way things are now, with all the new Jewish and Arab neighborhoods and housing developments that have been added in the city, we're no longer an apple that can be cut in half. And if when the then Prime Minister Eshkol held out his hand in a request for peace from the then Jordanian government, there was no Palestinian authority at that time, it was the Jordanian government, and there was no one to negotiate with and no one to talk to. So things have evolved. We're now nearly half a century on, and cities can't live in limbo during a time like that. So people who say we have to go back to the way we were in 1967 are again not thinking of the city as it really is, because it's not an apple that can be cut in half. And evil apples that are cut in half don't survive. We mustn't become a Nicosia, and we mustn't become a Berlin as it was before the unification of the two Germanys. So although 1967 presented a tremendous opportunity for Jerusalem, we've got to prove our worth. We've got to prove our capacity to be a city that is shared by all the different populations in it. So I think more than being a divided city, we need to be a shared city. I think that could be the secret for Jerusalem's future. And that was the opportunity we had in 1967. One of our neighborhoods, Beit Safafa, it's been in the news quite a lot because it's being plagued by a highway development, as have been many neighborhoods in Jerusalem. But if you go to the village of Beit Safafa, which is in the municipal boundary of Jerusalem, the main street there is called the Street of Unification of the village. Village Unification Street. And what does it mark? That in 1948, the armistice line between Israel and Jordan cut Beit Safafa in half. And 1967 brought the two halves of the village together. So it wasn't only Jerusalem as a city that was reunited, there were whole neighborhoods that had been cut in half and were reunited. So we have to take the good from that, and we have to make our city a place shared by all its populations, loved by all its populations, and a city that knows how to give its message to the world as a very positive and comfortable place to be. And that's the message I would give to journalists all over the world too. Perhaps if, like we do, we who are running the city, if everyone in the world got up every day and thought, what are we going to do today to help Jerusalem be a more peaceful and harmonious city, maybe we could all achieve that result together. So I would like to invite all the people who are listening to this to get up and come and be pilgrims, share the city, and then go back home and be ambassadors for Jerusalem.
Now, you came originally from the United Kingdom. Why did you come to live here in Jerusalem?
I came to live in Jerusalem because I believed that Israel was the appropriate place for Jews to live. It was established as a state for the Jewish people after the recommendations of the Balfour Declaration and after approval of the United Nations and after thousands of years of being a nation without a home and being scattered around the world and persecuted horribly and nearly annihilated in the Second World War by the Holocaust. So there was every reason to want to be part of this immense new nation building. The positive energy that has gone into the building and development of the State of Israel, I think against all odds, is something that I think everyone would want to be part of. And it's been my privilege to marry here, raise my family here, see grandchildren born here, and that's a wonderful privilege.
Now, Barack Obama is coming this week. Is it easy preparing for a president of the United States of America?
Barack Obama's visit has shut down the city. It means people can't get to work. People can't get wherever they need to go. They can't do anything. We're all very pleased that Barack Obama is coming, but it actually shuts the city down completely. So people are in a kind of half humorous, half worried way, thinking how they're going to run their lives over the next 3 days, because most of us won't be involved with the very important events that Barack Obama will be discussing with the president, with the prime minister and the new cabinet, with other dignitaries and people. And I hope that his visit is a fruitful one. We all hope that the energy of this visit will get our peace process back on track. We're prepared for it. We think that we need to solve our problems together. And if he can help us, we want to give him every encouragement.
And what's your prayer finally for the city, for Jerusalem?
Well, I think that we should all take the verse that many of us quote in our prayers, which is pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I think that praying for the peace of Jerusalem isn't enough. I think that we have to follow through with our prayers, with actions and deeds, learn more about the city. That's my request to everyone, that we learn more about the city, love our city, pray indeed for there to be peace in Jerusalem and in the whole world. I believe if we can make our city develop and prosper and be harmonious, it could radiate out to the whole of the Middle East.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Naomi Tsur, thank you very much.
It's a great pleasure.